food is
busted. 3, 2. Busted.
And you got a little bevy in your hand.
Yeah.
And the milk is yummy for the baby.
It ends up being more also as with
Right. Keep going.
As with
he's on
the
fire.
Iraq.
Does he look like that, or does he look like if at any point you're listening to this and you are like the president of an HOA or something, just delete our number.
In this episode, some of our discourse concerns orthodox theology and praxis. While we are continually committed to exploring these topics with discretion and care, it is crucial to emphasize that none of our discussions constitute formal teaching or carry any authoritative weight whatsoever. If you have questions or concerns about any aspect of the Orthodox faith, please talk to your priest. Our podcast serves as a platform for open dialogue and exploration, but personal spiritual discernment and, most of all, guidance from a spiritual father are paramount.
It is later than you think.
You asked when was the what?
Have you been skipping the gym still?
I'll never tell. No,
Did
I went.
The last time you went is with me?
Yes.
Did the last time you went is with me?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean
that doesn't mean nothing. That doesn't mean nothing.
You get nothing. Oh man, it's something about.
Does the last time you went is with me the first time you went this year?
No, I've gone like 3 times this year. I'll have you know.
I've been not skipping, but like making my stretching out the rest breaks in between my days, mostly just because of convenience. It's been freaking busy. I know you got to sacrifice. I know you have to sacrifice to get what you want.
Yeah.
But often it seems like the cosmic order of things is to pit 2 things against each other that are really difficult to freaking choose. Like, it's easy to sacrifice video games for going to the gym. Because it's like, I might have a whim at any given day to be like, oh man, I really want to go play some Halo or something like that, but I got to go to the gym. That's an easy one. But like family time or like an evening at home, like a movie night, like a special festive, like, oh, we're sleeping upstairs tonight, and I can't just start that at 9:30 p.m. like, and then other things have to go on. So a lot of times it's family and gym, which goes back to I've always had this idea from you get a healthy dose of feeling like you have to like be harder and all that kind of stuff. If you ever do listen to an episode or so of like Jocko Willink or something like that, or if you just watch clips, and if you do find like if you're the type of person to respond well to that type of content, I am. Then it inevitably you get to a point where you're like, oh, I get it. So if I don't want to sacrifice my family time or like helping my wife out or being around for her or whatever, and I also don't want to sacrifice my personal progress, then the personal progress just needs to seep into the cracks. So you need to wake up at 5, or you need to do it in between, like on your lunch break, or like figure out how to make it so invisible to your, you know what I mean? Ideally, I mean, your spouse would be supportive and trying to make it so that you can get all that stuff done or whatever. But like, they do need you. They need your attention. They need your time and all that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know. It's a really tough balance to strike. But I think that one successful thing, or one thing that usually ends up being successful, is like making those things fit into the cracks, fit into the in-between times, forcing them into like, oh, my family gets up at 7:30, so I just need to get up at 5, and then have that time and actually utilize it instead of being all cozy in bed.
Yeah, there's 2. The way it plays out in my head is there's 2 lifestyles, and depending on which one that you're in, you can use one of 2 strategies. The first person that really I admired for this was Kevin, our producer over here. You've met Kevin back in high school or maybe college, and I was home for the summer. I'll be like, "Oh, yo, can you you want to go watch this movie? There's a matinee at 1 o'clock." And Kevin would say, "Yeah, no, I can't. I'm working out." And I said, "Can you just work out later?" And he said, "No." And I could see not like a severe panic, but no, that's not going to work because it's all that he didn't say that I could read between the lines when I looked into his pupils and I looked into the depth of his soul was, what works for me is not changing it up. It is set in stone. Everything else has to come around that. That's one way to do it. And for a lot of people that don't have all these other confounding variables, they can do that because they have control. When you do have a family and you're like, well, I don't really get to set the rules. My wife needs this, my kid needs this, my work needs this. Then you have to revert to this other strategy, which I think is what you're referring to, which takes the place of it's still a non-negotiable that I will get into the gym, but I have to make everything else flexible. Or the things that are inflexible are set in stone. Mm-hmm. You can't move those. Then there's your gym that's a non-negotiable.
And if I didn't make it, it's my fault.
Yeah. And if I don't lift 240 pounds, then
you have to.
If I don't lift this 240 pound dumbbell, then I'm gay and my whole family dies. You have to say that to yourself.
But more importantly, you have to make it. You have to structure it since you set the frame for your family. You have to structure the whole situation so that you can't resent, so that you never put yourself in a position to resent somebody else for you not getting your stuff done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's on you.
Yeah, that checks out. No nonsense, no excuses.
Otherwise, you really can sit around and be like, I have these goals that I can't get done because somebody keeps wanting my attention.
Yeah, you're just gnashing your teeth and weeping, and it's not a good situation.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, today we're not talking about working out and cranking steel, as the young kids like to say. We're talking about the other massive thing. If there's three things that really matter physically about setting yourself up for success, relationally, spiritually, financially, etc., they are sleep, diet, and exercise. And we're talking about diet. Mostly today. We can get into some other stuff, but I think it's fair to say that in 21st century America, food is cursed.
Mm. Yeah, it's messed up.
It's busted.
Whoa.
Did we just become best twins?
Yeah. Did you know that Teddy Roosevelt never slept a wink?
I've read that in an encyclopedia, but I didn't know if it was
Not
true.
even once. Nobody's ever caught him sleeping, and then he died. But back to food.
All right. So, yeah, food's busted, and I noticed you're wearing your raw milk shirt today, and we didn't even talk about that. And you got a little bevy in your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a bevy.
Yeah. So let's definitely hit that in a couple minutes. But I feel like I'm going to have to pump the brakes on myself if I get too excitable because I have a long and sordid history of eating trash.
Trash.
Yeah.
Slop.
Zog slop.
Sog slop. Soggy bottom slop.
Yeah. Soggy bottom boys.
What was the last thing you ate?
The last thing I ate?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a really good one. Philly cheesesteak Cafe del Sol.
How'd it make you feel?
Not that bad.
Not that bad?
But for someone who wants to go with me, we could go.
Do you notice your stomach feeling better or worse after certain types of foods?
Yes. I know what you're referring to, and I'll take the bait. Yes. Like 100% when I eat Zog slop, especially if it's fried in canola oil or if it's just like heavy bread. If I eat pizza, I recognize something that happens with my stomach. I recognize something that happens with my brain and just something that happens with my energy levels. Today, not so bad. I can't tell you why. But I also offset that with like caffeine at regular intervals. So
I find that sometimes, I mean, it's more often than not that when I eat something suboptimal, my body tells me immediately, but also for the rest of the day, depending on the severity of the event. So like, but it's not always. Sometimes sometimes I'll expect something to really set me off and it doesn't. And I guess you could say I'm more finely tuned to like different types of ingredients and stuff than I used to be, because I don't ever remember.
That's a good sign, though.
I think that's a great
Because,
sign.
all right, so
On one hand, it makes me more fragile, quote unquote, because like there are things that I can't really handle because
but
it makes me feel bad. But
what's
on
a
the
good
other hand,
analogy
it's
there?
like, I don't know if it's an analogy. I mean,
no, I'm
it's-
saying I'll let you finish, but I've got something that I think is going to make this all make sense.
I was just gonna say the only thing I can relate it to is like the discussion about people on Twitter like Soul Bra or Very Tan Man or whatever, who are very always about optimization. Always, it's always about do the absolute best thing, like get rid of the blue light and get sunshine and eat the purest foods and all this kind of stuff, and make sure you get 8 hours or more of sleep and all this kind of stuff, right? But then people will be like, okay, but the second you have to like not do those things, you're not going to be able to handle it. Like if you train yourself, like yes, it's optimal to be getting perfect sleep all the time. But isn't there also something to be said about the other side of things where people who are like trying to make themselves tough and like sleeping less or like sleeping on the floor or like the things that are not optimal for your body and for your perfect health, you will be less able to handle the stress of that because you live in the lap of luxury. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I always wonder between the two. I don't necessarily want to make myself fragile, but for longevity's sake, like these things really do have an effect on like your quality of life well into your 50s, 60s, 70s or whatever if you stay the course.
Yeah, I think there's a way to get endurance and to become more bulletproof and less fragile without doing things that are actually harmful in a serious way to your body. So you can be super religious about cutting out polyunsaturated fatty acids, and you don't have to worry that like, well, if I don't eat them, then I won't be able to handle them when I do eat them. I think that's like not a helpful track to go down.
If I don't sin, I won't be able to handle it.
Learn
if I
how
sin
to-
a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of the same thing, but like you can. There's hardly ever a situation where you have to eat seed oils and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, let's talk about why seed oils are bad.
Why are they bad?
You want me to say?
What's a seed oil?
What is a seed oil? That's where we start. Yeah. Because, I mean, I feel like we've talked about this stuff so much, and it's easy to forget that it's still a relatively niche body of knowledge for the average person. But it's so real. The fact that it's not known by a lot of people doesn't make it any less detrimental. It's not, you can't bury your head in the sand, and what I don't know won't hurt me. And this is so analogous to the faith
So
stuff.
many people do that. Oh my gosh. It is so analogous.
So
yeah.
analogous, but we don't have to go down that road.
So analogous.
Let's just stay with the literal right now. We'll be as concise and blunt as possible. The things that almost everything that you find on the grocery store shelves are cooked in something that was never supposed to be a food, and it goes back to some real, man, how do I say this without the putting our
Sinning.
PG rate, without sinning. Yeah, how do I say this? Oh, I didn't know you sin, dude. So
Back the history of it, just
Tell
long
us the
story
history.
short. Long story short. And this is, again, it's easy to be like, for the people who know, it's easy to be like, oh man, everyone's talking about this. But for the people who don't know, they don't know. So like the history of it is as simple as, maybe it gets more complex than this, or maybe you can get into heavier details. But essentially, one of the most decisive and powerful or impactful things that happened that led to the world that we're in right now, food-wise, in America in 2024, is back in like the early 1900s. You've got all of these big companies making engine lubricant and different things like that for machinery, like industrial equipment and all of that. And they found a way to process and get the residue, the refuse, the residual kind of byproducts from other things, so like cotton and stuff like that, and they would do all of the stuff to it, smash it, mash it, boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew, and then out comes something that is lubricating enough to kind of do another job. So they were repurposing it. That's kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It's being resourceful. It's being, not wasting everything and all that kind of stuff. But then you get to a point in time where something else comes along that's cheaper to use or whatever for that job. And they take all of the stuff that they have all the equipment, they have all the piles and piles and piles of goop that they were using for something else. Now it's obsolete. So what are they going to do? They're going to pivot, and they started doing casting spells and reciting incantations and doing deals with demons and stuff like that to figure out how to clean it in such a way to make it imperceptible to the human, right? To make it imperceptible that it is not good for you. Because otherwise we have 7 senses or whatever, and a whole bunch of them, at least 2 or 3 of them are key in determining whether something is good for you or bad for you. So on the meta spiritual side of things, a goal will be to package something in a way, whether it's sin or whether it's something that's physically bad for you, package it in a way that you can't perceive that it is bad for you. So they took the cottonseed oil that they were using for something else, they put it through a whole bunch of processes to make it not smell like absolute trash, garbage, and make it something that is quote unquote clean. And out on the other end of all this processing, it's something that they, I'm assuming they went through little tests and stuff to kind of introduce it and see how much of this stuff can we cut lard with or whatever until it starts being noticeable, or until somebody can pick up on it or whatever.
But
right?
Isn't lard bad for you though? Isn't fats just bad for you? Isn't low fat good?
So let me get there. So how much of this stuff can we put in before people start turning their nose up at it and being like, whatever? So they figured that out and they found that thing, and then they produce it and they slap a label on it and do some branding, and it's called Crisco. And so you can imagine like the magazines, like what's it called, Betty Crocker or whatever magazines or whatever that they had, and it gets pumped down onto the shelves, and you get this massive ad campaign, and at the same time you get this little rinky-dink American Heart Association, which is not really prominent, right?
At the time,
okay. And Procter & Gamble says, hey, we're going to make you a deal. We'll raise you to the top and make you, give you money and kind of support you. We just need you to come up with some studies and promote this stuff that we're selling as the heart-healthy food, right, or fat. So they have this huge campaign of they started 2 things. Number 1, demonizing saturated fats, butter, lard, tallow, right? The things that you get from animals and from nature. And then they started promoting and replacing the Crisco and the polyunsaturated fats, right? So there was a couple other ones, like I don't know when canola came on the scene or whatever, but Crisco for now. So they say, well, since this thing has been pumped out, we see a rising, an uptick of heart disease and all these chronic illnesses and people just being sick, right? So what are we going to do? They spun it so that they started out of nowhere demonizing the saturated fats, the butter and the stuff, and they'll be like, eat less butter because it clogs your arteries. Same thing with sugar. So here's the deal. So it started with all of the saturated fats. You get, decades into it, and this stuff explodes because what defense? There's no internet. There's nobody really speaking, or there's no way to speak about it in a broad sense. So what defense do the people, the greater, the people at large, is that the way to say that?
Yeah.
What defense do they have against the dark arts? I don't know. So you have all the advertisements and all of the experts, the American Heart Association and the government people, and the commercials and the ads and all this kind of stuff saying one thing and completely replacing it. It's all corrupt and bought. They're bought and paid for by the big companies, the corporations. So this happens kind of uncontested for however many decades, and continue to see all of these things rise, right? And then obviously you have the pharmaceuticals where they're like pumping out things to help this and that. And you've got, now we're battling diabetes and we're trying to fight it with this. And now and then, like Kevin said, sugar starts getting into the mix of like, we need less sugar, we need less saturated fat, we need less carbohydrates in general, all of this kind of stuff that they're like, whatever. So then you have the American diet completely eviscerated of all the actual nutrients and all the things that are like good fuel and optimal fuel to run off of, and then and replaced with stuff that is making you sicker. So on like on a cellular level, it's damaging key parts of the cell that are designed to run on like healthy fats, and replacing that, and then it's just like you got a goofy part of your engine in your car. It's like it may still technically run, but it's so inefficient that it's like causing breakdown much faster than it ever should be, right? Anyway, so this all happens, and then you get in like the 50s or maybe the 60s, 70s, whoever, people like Ray P. I don't even know if he's maybe the 80s. I don't know. Whatever. Whenever he started talking about it, you get these little movements of people who are like actually looking into it and studying and be like, oh, shoot, everything is a lie. Sugar is actually pretty darn good for you. It's the fact that your body's ability to process sugar is so busted by all the seed oils. So sugar good, assuming you're low PUFA, which polyunsaturated fatty acids, right? And saturated fat, always good because you want to be replacing it or whatever. Anyway, so that's the little history thing, is like it all was just a money thing on the human level.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to take us off I don't know if I just read your mind or what, but the non-physical, we're talking about the easiest explanation.
For normies
For any
like that don't really
conspiracy.
think about spirits and stuff like that and don't really care or like
It's the
don't
obvious,
acknowledge it.
right.
It's like, oh yeah, money, corruption, Procter & Gamble. Like they
Yeah.
can be down with the seed oil. They're less likely to because they're more likely to believe in the propaganda because they don't have that spiritual force field.
Right.
Right?
But before we go too far off the rails, it seems to me that you're acknowledging, yes, the love of money is the root of all types of evil. It is for human beings, but that love of money itself is more of a tool to the spiritual forces. Do demons love money? Probably not.
They
But
like
love
it as
for
a
you-
tool.
They love for you to love money,
Yeah.
because that is the hook into your soul.
Yeah.
What do they love? That's the question. And what the demons love,
Oh, shoot.
yeah, that's the thing that I think is going to drive the broader arcs, the bigger arcs of how society goes. We go, how did we get here? How did we get to all the Skittles stuff all over the place? The tea in the blank, blank, blank tea community. Pervasive as all get out, and it just sprung into action like it was this trap that was well laid for decades in advance, which it turns out it was. But it's like, why?
Or
Is it?
centuries
Yeah,
or,
and
or
you could-
millennia.
You could say, well, that's just because of some other country trying to destabilize ours, and they know how that works,
Yeah,
and it
it's
happens
too
with.
low on the pyramid to like
Right.
stop there though.
So it is true at each level. My point is, at each level of the pyramid, it is true. But a lot of what we're going to be concerned about here at Cursed World Problems is going to be those higher levels.
Yeah.
Those spiritual powers and forces in the air.
Oh, not tonight, sweetie. You've had chef every night this week.
But I love Chef.
And you were just talking to me earlier about This Present Darkness, which I've never read, but I knew it was super popular when it came out. it is good at, apparently, I mean, you're the one who could speak with experience on this, but apparently kind of makes things real, puts a narrative that you can follow easily and start to like see that spiritual battle. The one that I'm more familiar with is That Hideous Strength, third book of the Space Trilogy. That Hideous Strength. And with them, it's a perfect example of all the people, and I'm going to try to do this without spoilers for the listening audience. If I could endorse anything, it would be the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis. He didn't call it the Space Trilogy. It was the Ransom Trilogy.
Ransom Trilogy.
He might not have called it either of them, but point is that third book, again, without spoiling anything, there is a grand conspiracy happening in kind of the political / social / scientific community, academics involved in there and all that. And all these major players on the human level have their own motivations for what's going on. But it all kind of works together seamlessly in a way that just so happens to be a major affront against nature and God and what's true and upright and righteous. And it happens to side with this postmodern nihilistic, humanistic, transhumanistic thing. And this is why C.S. Lewis was like truly a prophet of the modern age, because if you read that book, you can see things that are happening in the year of our Lord 2024.
Well, it makes it make sense in a different way, because
Crazy.
Until, not that you can't possibly come up with this on your own if you haven't read the book or hear this type of thing from somebody else, but at least for me, from my perspective, I was trapped, and I think a lot of people stay trapped in the idea of how does it all make sense? How can we fit it together? How are they all operating in lockstep, seemingly, where all the forces are against you? It's so orchestrated. Everybody has to be in
how
on
many
it.
people? Yeah, right? How many people would have to be in on a conspiracy of this level? And it's like,
and then it makes you either you have to choose to be crazy enough to believe that everybody's in on it, except for you, right? Like actually getting schizophrenic. Or you have to throw it all out and be like, maybe there's a more normal explanation, and maybe I'm the stupid one.
And it's just an unfortunate byproduct of people's greed that everyone has become physically sick, which then again, also inexplicably, coincidentally, just happens to make them have an inability for any self-control or motivation or ambition to do good in the world. It ruins them spiritually. I'm thinking of, so if you have these great engineers of the destruction of modern society, you have those on the other side, the champions of truth, and they know the deep wisdom. The one I'm thinking of right now is St. John Climacus, who wrote The Ladder of Divine Ascent. And in just a few pages, he talks about how we must fight. And granted, he's not writing to the public. He is a great ascetic, writing to other great ascetics, writing to monks. So a lot of it's hardcore, and there's it's not super straightforward for how to apply it. That's the disclaimer. But when he is talking about fasting, he talks about the stomach being the thing that we must master, and that gluttony is not just bad in itself, but it is the father of fornication. And that we should learn to master ourselves, and specifically the stomach, whether it represents just the organ that our food goes into, or the greater idea of desire within ourselves, desire to please the flesh, to serve the flesh, to self-preserve. And so when I first read those words, that gluttony is the father of fornication, I'm like, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me that, they say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? Super old cliche.
Yeah.
It really is true that the way to mankind's heart is by way of his stomach. And so what have they done but ruined and hijacked our food supply to make it not only bad for us, but also addictively bad for us. And so anyway, bringing this all back to that higher level, it looks like to the rationalist materialist who refuses to believe in the spiritual realm, it looks like, well, it's cheaper for them to make these things, and therefore they can make lots of money, and they make it addictive so that people buy more. That's true. However, you and I both know well enough that we actually are more on the side of people who think that they're at the top of the food chain aren't, that they're serving a master that has a deep philosophical motivation, a deep-seated hatred for the image of God, and seeks to use mankind against himself. And that's what sin is. So now we've come not full circle. We've just hit the end of the line.
Yeah.
This is why food is cursed.
And it
because
ends up
the curse of Adam has infiltrated one of the things that should be holy and sacramental, which is food, bread.
Wow. Okay.
You see where I'm going with this?
Sacramental. So
Sacramento.
it ends up being more also as. It ends up being more also as with.
Right.
Keep
going.
As with.
He's on
the
fire.
Iraq. No, it ends up being like we're living in an episode or all of the episodes of like Sailor Moon or something.
Not tell me, because I haven't watched as many
I'm kind of
episodes
the
as I
resident
would've liked.
anime expert, so
Yeah.
listen up. Whenever the anime expert speaks, you shut up and listen.
Yeah.
You sit your butt down and listen.
Yeah.
So Sailor Moon, it's like every single episode. I never grew up watching it. I promise. No, but my wife did, and we've talked about it. You know, we both like anime, all this kind of stuff. So we've sat down and watched episodes together because it reminds her of her childhood or whatever. And very quickly, you catch on to the thread throughout every single episode, right? I think that there may be some like long running story of like, oh, she like has a crush on this guy or whatever, and who knows, that may actually develop throughout. But otherwise, it's kind of like Pokemon, where it's like Team Rocket shows up. And then they try to steal Pikachu, and then they get thwarted, and then they get cast off into the sky with a twinkle, right? Every single episode. It's guaranteed. Same with Sailor Moon, but it's people going about their normal days, their normal lives, in day-to-day lives, and then a villain shows up or doesn't show up, but is secretly using some dark magic, some dark arts to steal people's energy, right? Like vampires, right?
Okay.
Not a vampire that would come and suck your blood, but it's all very symbolic. That's the one-to-one like face value, like the imagery of like a vampire is a person and he comes and sticks his teeth into your neck and sucks your blood because the life is in the blood, right?
Yeah.
You go up a little bit more abstract, and it's villains like almost like succubi or whatever, and they're feeding off of your energy, your vitality, right? And that's the currency that they're dealing in. That's what they love. So to answer your question earlier, you're like, well, people love money, right? And that leads to whatever, but the demons don't have any use for money, but other
What
than
is
as
their
a tool,
currency?
what do they enjoy? What do they get off? What do they get their rocks off on? Right? They get their nasty little nuts quaking at the thought of draining a high potential, high T man.
Their engine is hate. It is about causing loss to the image. It is a vendetta that is eternal.
Yeah. So stealing the potential, squanching the ability of the person to do anything about it or to change their state or to find God or to get closer to God, draining all of that out of them is what they love. So every episode of Sailor Moon goes the same way, where there's, normal day-to-day life. Villain is doing some sort of dark arts to make that happen. And it ends up like one in particular that I'm thinking of. Everybody, it's just showing images of people like doing their work in the office or whatever, and everybody's like getting more gaunt and like falling asleep at their desk or whatever. And then you find out that some villain with like horns and a cape and stuff like that and a couple of goons is like casting spells over the city to like drain their energy.
Yeah,
And then
can we-
Sailor Moon and all of the other ones.
Can I just cut you off for a second?
Yeah,
Can
sure.
we-
Cut
can
me
we
off.
not say
Go
goon?
ahead.
I just don't want to trigger anyone. Can we just not say goons?
All right, goon, we'll cut that out.
All right. That's just a no-no word for this podcast. I don't want to trigger anyone.
You don't want anybody to be gooning after this.
I don't want anyone to be gooning, but I know that Kevin's going to work the magic so that I get the sensor over my mouth. All right. Please continue.
So Sailor and the other sailors show up. They kick butt. They fight, and then they defeat the bad guy, right? And everybody gets their energy back, and it's they save the day. This is the very thing that's happening. Like, people are getting caught in the trap of giving away their energy, right? Because you know, you go back to the other ancient age-old stories of like there's power in a name, or like you have to, like the person can't, what is it, vampires again, can't come into your house unless you allow them or something like that. There's all of these wives' tales or ancient myths that we like, that everybody knows about, and there's like lore behind it, but it's a real thing. You have to give up your energy to them for them to have any power or whatever. So,
and what's really weird,
go ahead,
is how often they tell the truth, and by they I mean Hollywood, the people that are supposedly arm in arm with the great power
they
structures.
apparently have to, but
so
really
we got to talk
that.
about that at some point, because there are differing theories on it, and I think that it's good enough to get into, but that's kind of beside the point for now. Like, why they have to tell the truth, super interesting. But for one reason or another, they tell the truth, and the thing that keeps popping into my head, two things really. One is, what was the sequel to The Shining?
The Shining 2.
Dr. Sleep. The Shining 2.
Dr. Bones.
The Shining 2, Dr. Bones, a.k.a. Dr. Sleep.
Jackie's back.
Jackie's back,
backy.
baby. And it's me, Chucky.
It's me, Chunky. Go ahead.
I'm the chunky little doll that steals your soul,
Chunky
baby.
bones.
Yeah, baby, I'm Randy,
I've
mate.
got a chunky bone,
Oh,
yeah?
I've got a chunky boner, baby. Yeah, mate. So we cringe for Christ. I've said it once. I'll say it again. We need the T-shirt, because
we'll get the T-shirts. And
we'll get
wear
the
'em.
T-shirts going.
We'll get the T-shirts.
I'm ready to be.
Are you off track?
No, I've got
All
it.
right,
So
Chunky Bone,
Dr.
go
Sleep,
ahead.
Chunky Monkey, Chunky Mon. Oh, I'm the Jamaican Chunky Mon, the fat Jamaican.
All right, it's just getting worse.
All right,
Go.
it's getting so bad. But in Dr. Sleep, if anyone's seen it, I haven't read it. Most of the time, Stephen King will write a book, and it's pretty good, and then someone will make a movie that just takes it and veers off track and does something different. Way better than the book every time. Stephen King, people who take his work and make a movie out of it. Cat noise.
They could be an angel?
Could be a little angel, or your worst freaking nightmare. So, Dr. Sleep, these perverts come and kidnap children, and they what do? They suck their souls out or something, or they get their, but it's all about, it's fear-based.
Get into that boy's hole.
Exactly. They are trying to get into that boy's soul. And so that's the whole movie, and it's just so on the nose. It's so obvious that this is like an allegory for like sex trafficking of children.
It's like
and
Monsters,
it's messed
Inc.
up. Yeah, except even more obvious than Monsters, Inc. But if you think about it, it's like, why do they enjoy that? And the spirits that animate them, why do they enjoy that? I don't think that it's as simple as you're losing your life force, and they're literally getting that like from you. That would be, I think it's close to that, but that's still just an analogy for what's really happening. It's that their meter goes up. They get some satisfaction precisely for the fact that your potential, like you said, is gone. Mm-hmm. So and that's why Christ redeeming you from that burns them, kills them, or whatever, because now their life is meaningless because their victims have been snatched out from them. All they have, they're like a black hole. If Christ is radiant and is like electromagnetism, and it shines in different wavelengths and different frequencies in all directions all the time eternally. That's one scientific reality that we know of. Now think about that on the spiritual realm, that he fillest all things, and God is like the sun in that way, with love and compassion and warmth, wisdom, peace, whatever other like attributes of God. And the opposite of that is what the demons are like. Only sucking, like a black hole. There's nothing there, but it seeks to consume, but it's never filled.
Piggybacking off of all of that, there was a dude on Twitter, shout out Casey Bradford, fantastic content for just inspiration and good. He's got a lot of really good threads. That's what they're into. That's what the esoteric health right-wing extremist Twitter accounts are all into these days, is lots and lots of threads. But anyway, he's got some really great content. He's all about like going out in the sun and getting sunlight and working out with mostly body weight, but a few kettlebells, and he's like a big dude, and that's all he ever does. He just does it right. So anyway, but high vitality, high energy, high smiles, lots of smiles, right? And fun and flow, and it shouldn't be painful, and it's like the opposite of David Goggins, right? There's two ways to do it. I'm not dissing David Goggins, but he's probably less happy than Casey Bradford. Maybe he's stronger, maybe he has a little bit denser muscles or something like that, but like life force wise, this dude is exuding a gravitas of all sorts, right? And it's all happiness. It's all good, positive stuff. So anyway, he was telling his story on Twitter the other day, or at least I clicked on the thread the other day, and he was talking about how he was a normal dude, regular dude, right? 20s, mid-20s or whatever, 25 years old, and had, much like many other people, just, living life until he wakes up into health stuff. And he watches this Netflix documentary that convinces him that plant-based living and eating and all of that is the best, is the way to go for health for you, for health for the animals, for health for the world around you and the environment. That is the way to do. And the other way, so people who, these nasty meat eaters or whatever, are the ones who are the problem, right? So he bought it, swallowed the pill, and like accepted it, and was like, oh man, I'm gonna start caring about my health. And so for like 3 or 4 years or however long, was plant-based, and you don't get enough protein from normal plants, so you have to go to like lots and lots, excessive amounts of nuts and nut milks and oat milk and all of these other different seeds of sorts to get protein, to balance it out. And he ended up skinny fat, sick, lethargic, kind of gross, feeling all the time, and just sick, right? These are the things, if you go much longer on that type of thing, you do develop the chronic issues. You get like irritable bowel syndrome or freaking Crohn's disease or all of these things that people get, right? Until he started, again, much like many other people, they flip the switch the other way and find a little bit more out and go carnivore for a little while, and then they eventually end up with all of the good stuff, right? So they do the raw milk and the whole foods and the lots of fruit and sugar from fruit and all of that kind of stuff, and orange juice, and eventually, the end of the red pill pipeline is Ray Peat and Mike Menser and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like there's like a we should have done the bottom line up front statement that we might take for granted because we've been looking into this stuff for a couple years at least, but a lot of people just need to hear it. The answer is all of your problems are coming because your entire way of life has deviated from nature.
Yeah.
And
from the normal order, the natural created order.
Just making it simple. That should be obvious, but a lot of people like lose sight of that.
Yeah, the more you have to do to like go to, the more work that goes into like striving to do things like differently than whatever would naturally happen is like the wronger you get. But anyway, back to this Casey Bradford guy. It made me start thinking. Netflix made a documentary, but they had a documentary on there. Whoever made it, the documentators and Netflix and whoever, all of the different people on that line made some money, sure, right? But that, like we said, that's not the end of it. Like, it's not, they're not lying to people necessarily just for money. There's something more, right? Sure, you can sell a lie and they can line their pockets based on people subscribing to this, that, and the other, just simply watching it or whatever. But there's something deeper, something more insidious, something more sinister.
Don't say those words. You're scaring me.
At play, to where there's a different currency being exchanged, like we talked about, and it's some sick spirits getting their rocks off on the fact that some wholesome, well-meaning lad was just trying to do something good for his health, and got misinformed to a point where he he goofed up his whole endocrine system, and had to, if he never would have found, like he very well could have, like other people, just keep going like that for the rest of their life, and then they just end up sick and scared and cold and lonely, right? So that's what I'm saying is the vampire system. They're reaping the harvest of people's life energy that the people are offering up by buying into these things and these ways of living or whatever. And then even further, people will get, usually young females between the ages of like 17 and 26 or whatever, get really fired up because that the energy that's supposed to be going into like making their house a home and bearing babies and all that kind of stuff, and like fierce mama bear protecting
What do they get
them.
fired up about?
They get fired up about protecting the animals. They see a freaking Sarah McLachlan commercial and they send their money there, or they see like some documentary about Fairlife Farms, and they assume that all animal products and eating necessitates suffering from like the way that these like little baby cows or whatever getting kicked in the head just because some freaking foreigner is kicking them in the head, and he's like that stuff is what they see, and then they apply that to everything, and they're like, oh,
Real.
meat bad. And I'm getting fired up about it, and I'm going to go preach it to the world and be like freaking Greta Thunberg's
I think
Toontown.
I think that is her name.
Gretchen. What's her name? Gretchen Toontown?
Yeah, Gretchen Toontown.
But like,
Fox News
she's
contributor
an
Gretchen
icon
Toontown.
for many young ladies who like they're getting fired up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
that's their vital energy that's going to waste, and it's getting flushed right down the toilet. That could be used for good things. People only have so much of that.
Yeah. Real. And I think what it's making me think is, why is everything cursed? Because
Gretchen Thornberry. Gretchen Thornberry or Greta Thornberry, I think, is what her name is.
Yeah. Nigel Thornberry, mate, baby. Yeah, I'm a spy, baby.
Nigel Spy, baby. Spyberry. All right, that was too
Off the
far.
rails.
We're off the rails. We're off the rails.
You're on there. Yeah, it makes me think that why is everything cursed? And it's because, as St. Paisios said, there are two powers in the world, God and the devil. It really is that simple. It doesn't mean that there aren't other quasi-independent actors. It doesn't mean that there aren't actors with agency, us human beings. But it is true that if we are in service to God, we're in service to God. But if we're in service to ourselves, we're in service to the devil. And these people that seek to serve themselves with money don't realize that they're a foot soldier, and that the demons and the devils and the devil they're not dummies. So it shouldn't be surprising to us that there's some design to the fact that these young women that you're talking about, their natural maternal instinct and their softness toward cute, cuddly creatures is also utilized. God wastes nothing. We know that.
Yeah.
But the devil also makes a pretty good crack at wasting nothing. And he's not going to waste any element of this grand system, which each composite part of the system is cursed and busted, and they all work together to break down. So if this thing in nature and by God's design is supposed to be a well-oiled machine that runs in perpetuity,
And intuitively and like...
right, then if this organism is supposed to be eternal, then it is the devil's design to make sure that he can expertly sabotage every smaller system within it. And that those in turn corrupt one another, and that all the people that make up those systems, he can use their own fallen, corrupted natures against them. And you find this in the scriptures too. It's not that human beings are off the hook with this stuff. It's because you get, I think it's in James chapter 3 or 4, but a man falls into sin when he's dragged away by his own desires. But who's doing the dragging? The desires are doing some of the dragging, but who's leveraging them against us? Why is it that our desires always lead to death? And it's because there is a kingdom of darkness that is seeking to claim you. If the devil roams to and fro on the earth, seeking whom he may devour. How does that play out? Does he look like that, or does he look like the board of directors or whatever of Procter and Gamble, being like, oh, maybe if we cause another million people to get prostate cancer, we can make an extra $50 each.
Yeah. I mean, that does happen.
Right.
There's like think tanks and stuff like that.
We're talking about two
There's
realities.
like fish tanks.
Yeah, fish tanks. In Harry Potter, Dumbledore in the first couple of movies claps like this.
Why does he do that?
No one knows. It's been my
Harry
biggest.
Potter is. I'm not gonna say it. Your current event, Napoleon.
Current event for me. I've been seeing a lot of stuff. It's not an event per se, but a current thing that's been swirling around Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, by the way, ever. People think it's funny to be like X, formerly known as Twitter, but they've already sold out. Anywho, on Twitter, one thing that's been swirling around a lot is talk about India. Sometimes I feel bad for India. I feel bad for people in India, the people of India, food that's going on there, sanitary issues that I don't even want to go into detail about, but I mean, you already know what I'm talking about. And then I'm reading the book, The Gurus, The Young Man and Elder Paisios. Fantastic. And he's all over India for part of the book, trying to seek truth in the gurus and the yogis. And even in like the 80s, which is when he was there, he was just basically saying things that you'd see written on Twitter in 2024. And I just think that place is so impoverished and overcrowded, and like there's a lot of conflicts because different races, different religions, different castes in the caste system, etc. And they all just have this stewing animosity, and it's this big pit of just, it's like hell in a lot of ways.
People are puking.
People are just puking. Went there once. I was puking. You're good, though. And then I thought, man, why the theme right now? And in the book, of course, he also goes into detail about the spiritual depravity and people worshiping idols and worshiping false gods and worshiping other men who are considered to be like in some way or in some manner God incarnate. And they also worship disfigurement in a lot of ways, or they would consider that if a person is insane, that's like a special blessing, that there's a sacred type of insanity.
Ooh.
Or there's a sacred, if a woman, I was reading a story about a woman who couldn't stop menstrual bleeding, and they're like, oh, that's actually just a purification happening to her. She must be blessed. And this backwards look at everything. And each one of them, I could think of a corresponding Christian witness. So the woman who had an issue of bleeding touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and she was healed. It was clearly something she needed healed from. It was an affliction. It was a curse. And so the power that flowed out of him reversed that. And they're in this Hindu culture, they're like, oh, this is a good thing that's happening to her, this bleeding. And we know intuitively it's not. And then, like I said, the disfigurement, a cow or a human baby is born in some way that's tragic. It's like, oh, we can marvel at this, and somehow Vishnu has smiled upon us. I don't know who Vishnu is. I haven't gone that deep, so this is probably very offensive to our Indian neighbors. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. And now old Ramaswamy, that everyone's like, yeah, so base, so red-pilled. He is saying all the right things, but why should it be any surprise to us that we have this propped-up Hindu man? They didn't give us an Orthodox Christian. They gave us I'm young, I'm handsome.
Yeah.
He's at the top of his game.
Yeah.
And then who else but Nikki Haley, also converted to Christianity, but you see all these pictures of her on the internet with her little dot, and she's like... So what is it? I think Hinduism is at the center of something big. And Eastern mysticism in Hinduism and the great yogis and transcendental meditation and all that, is it any surprise that that is way, way upstream? Maybe the spring itself that produces the stream that becomes, mind control, magic type of stuff, and MK Ultra, and astral projection, and remote viewing, and also Helena Blavatsky's Theosophical Society, and Alice Bailey's whatever she was into, white magic, witchcraft type of things. All the New Age stuff, its home, surprise, surprise, is in the Hindu societies and in their religious structure and in their false gods.
Yeah.
The Beatles, we're all like, is it true that the Beatles were used as a CIA tool or whatever? Well, would it be any surprise that they go from being wearing their little suits and being like 8 days a week to going to India and sitting in some dirty river that's filled with human excrement and then coming back or Charles Manson and psychedelics? I could just keep rambling off these words, but you can see that they're all facets of the same big Eastern mystical thing.
Yeah.
And it's the false one, because you and
Yeah.
I are also into Eastern mysticism, but it's the Eastern mystical Christian tradition that is the thing that everything else is a desperate counterfeit of. And that's my current event. I don't know where we go with that. Maybe it's a whole episode. Maybe we jump into that right now and we call
Well,
this
who
episode.
talks about it more? Does anybody talk about it more than Blessed Seraphim Rose? Like, he's kind of like, at least now, he's kind of like the not buzzword, but he's like
popular.
the guy. He's like the guy that's talking about it, like Eastern
Yeah.
stuff, because he went through it all.
Yeah.
And like arrived at Eastern Orthodoxy.
And when you say
as
he's
the-
talking about it, you mean people are talking about him talking about it.
Yeah.
Because he reposed
That's what I
in
mean.
19... Yes. I mean, I know you know that. I'm just saying I want to make sure that...
Well, I mean,
that-
he's talking as in the books that he wrote.
Yes,
In
and that's
the
important to
lectures
highlight.
that he gave, in all of that kind of stuff. He went through an entire, like a whole pathway through that stuff, looking for truth, and found more truth in the Eastern mysticism, the evil Eastern mysticism, than he found in Western Christian stuff.
Watered
right?
down Protestant
Most
nonsense.
people
Yes.
do, unfortunately, which is why we were talking about that present darkness earlier, is because that just paints one narrative that is applicable to many, many, many people. They grow up Protestant, Christian in some way, shape, or form. It's good for their younger years. They're sincere. They believe it. They're into it. They grow up, see a little bit of the world, realize that things aren't so clean cut and that things aren't quite the way that they were always taught. Then they get a dose somewhere or another, usually in some college class or whatever, a dose of the Eastern mysticism.
Yeah.
And they see evidence that there's something there, that there's real power, more power than they've ever seen in their
And that's my
church.
point, is that there's
And then
so
they're
many
like,
brands
"Oh
of that.
shoot, my sorry sucker parents are just boring white people or whatever that stayed the course of their upbringing. But I'm going to be the one that breaks the mold and find the real truth, because I'm seeing my friends actually have spiritual experiences. And now I'm going to their houses and having little, experimenting with little seances and having my own spiritual experiences, which is more real to them than any prayer they've ever said. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So Father Seraphim Rose went through all of that, but by the grace of God found the true mysticism, the true Eastern whatever, which still resides in that way of thinking. It's appealing to everyone once they understand
Yeah, I have to
what's at stake.
I have to plug this real quick. The book that you can read the Wikipedia page for Father Seraphim Rose, or you can read a biography about his life, or you can just talk to people, word of mouth it, oral tradition it, and you will get that narrative. But if you want in depth some stories that will knock your socks off, this is the bad boy right here. The Gurus, the Young Man, and Elder Paisios. And this author's name, I don't know if we're focused in here, but we'll find a way to put it on the...
Well, let me put it on this one too.
Yeah. So, this author, I believe that is a pseudonym, but I'm halfway through this book, and you're seeing intimately the journey of a person, their testimonial for all of the little anecdotes from two sides. He had spent months intermittently too, not just did one, then did the other, then returned, but he would spend a couple months on Mount Athos with Elder Paisios and with other monks. He would learn from them. He would pray with them. He'd do liturgy with them. He would pray in a solitary way. He would do work there. He would just live that life with them, but as a Christian inquiring person, and not, he hadn't committed himself and he hadn't walked that path, but he was trying to learn. And the reason he ended up there is because he lived in Greece, and one thing, led to another, and he found himself there to search that truth because he was struggling with the same things as Father Seraphim Rose in terms of questioning, where's the meaning in the world, or is it all meaningless, or is God real, or is it, or are the postmodernists right and the nihilists right? And he had this internal anguish and struggle, and so he sought truth with the Orthodox monks. The problem is, when he did that, he had already beforehand fooled around with a lot of witchcraft and with a lot of yoga and had spiritual experiences. And so, because he was a very critical type of young man, he thought, even after having Elder Paisios speak into him, and sometimes in a mystical way, to almost like come and quote unquote walk around in his soul through conversations or through experiences together, and to give him blessings and to deliver him by God's grace as a holy man, to be able to be God's hand in delivering him from some of these afflictions, and to pray for him constantly, and that this intercessory prayer that yielded such wondrous and miraculous results that he really couldn't deny that it was real, but something in his rational mind still said, I need to give the same opportunity to the yogis, because it could just be another path to the same God. And all of these accounts, again, I'm only halfway through it, but the only reason he wrote the book was to say the world needs to know about this man, and he got his permission. At one point, even Father Paisios, Saint Paisios, had told him, stop writing, please. And then months later said, okay, you can keep writing your book. And who knows why. But yeah, it's just so close to God, so in tune with God. And this author's book, the whole reason I'm saying this is Father Seraphim Rose, yes, he's on everyone's lips nowadays. Very popular subject, but I don't know how popular this book is. I'm just here to endorse it because it may end up being an all-time like top fiver for me.
Wow.
Yeah, believe it or not.
So there's lots of little stories. Is this the same one that you were telling me about the other day with the pastries?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Saint Paisios.
The Saint Pastricios.
When the man who wrote this book experienced just a glimpse of the uncreated light and a blessing of peace that was the type of thing described scripturally as a peace that surpasses all understanding, and he experienced that directly after being so bombarded by demonic attacks that he just couldn't stand it, and he thought his mind was going to be shredded, and then he received a blessing of that peace that he couldn't account for. And the elder said to him, I see God has granted you a little piece of candy from his pastry shop. And I was like, whoa, he knows that and that insinuates too, that's just a little morsel. And then that day when he was leaving, he's like, okay, I've got to hike back 2 hours to where my living quarters are on Mount Athos. And Elder Paisios looked at him and said, and don't forget, he has pastries too.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, what a I don't know. There's not an adequate adjective. What a spirited man. And I'm like just supremely jealous because I've never had that. I don't know. I've never met anyone that embodied. The closest thing that we know of would be like a Tom Bombadil type. Mm-hmm. Just light and full of joy, but also full of wisdom and a powerful person. Not someone that... It's someone that you're forced to take seriously, but at the same time, the joy and the whimsy just kind of like flow out. And you're like, we're laughing, we're having a good time, and I don't even know why. Something about you.
Wow. There's probably plenty more stories. Mm-hmm. Is the book full of them?
A good handful I've had so far, but about half of what I've read so far is him in some squalid town outside New Delhi or something. And,
Wow.
Yeah. Your current event, Napoleon?
My current event, Amos Miller Farm in Pennsylvania. What's that place called? Lancaster, near Lancaster. Anyway, I've been there. It's a nice farm, big old farm. But they do, like many other places, they do raw milk, cow shares, and they have lots of other things there. So there they do, of course, cow's milk. They do sheep milk. They do camel milk. They have camels. And they do all different kinds of stuff like that. And so if you're not aware, the country is in a state where most states, I think federally and in most states or whatever, it is effectively illegal to have any sort of a transaction of raw unpasteurized milk, right, from one hand to another with money involved or whatever. So these sorts of disgusting rules on the books is like pretty pervasive, but most of the time people or farms that want to kind of be in this area or in this line of business or whatever and share the liquid gold that is raw milk, they do what's called cow shares. So instead of buying the milk, you have a portion of the cow. You own the cow effectively, so you're entitled to its fruits, right? Anyway, so Amos Miller's farm is one that is in all of the rogue food type culture. Is a hot name because famously, I don't know how many years ago, he's been doing the farm for freaking ever, and at one point somebody like from the USDA or something showed up. I'm probably getting the story mostly wrong, but it's something like this. Somebody in a suit or whatever showed up and said, "Oh, we're just taking a look at this and that and the other, and we just need you to sign this and this about your operation that you got going on." He signed it, not really looking into it or not really thinking about it. Eventually, that signature ended up being the thing. Like they got his signature that ruined him, right? So then, for the last however many years, it's been constant pestering, constant like he gave away some rights or whatever, and has been having to work way harder to keep the business running and like do things the right way. So now he's like held to a standard of whatever. If he wouldn't have signed the thing, he would have been able to stay under the radar, yada yada yada.
But they're trying to kill him for the same reasons, metaphorically, the same reasons that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Why are they trying to shut this guy down? Because he's doing something that's actually healthy, actually beautiful.
And it has not, like, it's consenting adults exchanging money for something that is good for you, right? Yeah. And yet there's an active
so the current
fight
event is they
against
came
it.
like a week ago.
So my current event is like a week ago. They basically something happened, or they got the warrant or whatever to basically go and bust it, right? So they went in and confiscated everything and like basically took all of his stuff. And it might have just been the milk. I'm not sure if it was the milk and the meat and the whatever, but they went in and basically like locked it off and like didn't let press in and stuff like that, and it went down. So just disgusting. It's like just the type of thing that makes you sit and seethe. It's the type of thing that makes you. It's like hall monitors. It's the same visceral reaction that you get deep in your loins from some like hall monitor neighbor calling the county to like tell on you for building a deck without a permit or something like that. It's like some people just get off on that stuff, and this is one of those things. Yeah, that's my current event.
I want to invite people from all walks of life to listen to our show, and obviously we hope that it has great success in the future. But if at any point you're listening to this and you are like the president of an HOA or something, just delete our number. I don't want to see you no more. I don't want to talk to you. What's that kid say in the meme?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I don't
talk
to me.
Don't. Yeah, just kidding. HOA president, you could be like a good one. You could let everyone hang out. You could be like, I don't care. I mean, there's no rules.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just like, so the raw milk thing is a whole other thing. What are we at? What's our time?
Hour 15.
Oh my gosh.
So, all right, go into raw milk.
So yeah, so Amos Miller sold it, and but there's lots of other farms that do it. The idea here is that the milk that you get at the store, the little story store, is it's pasteurized and homogenized, and even if you pay the high dollar for the special organic stuff, it's no better, right?
Still pasteurized.
It's still pasteurized.
It's dead
And
milk,
so
right?
what? Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they do is they heat it and they do whatever process to it to get rid of all the germs, to get rid of all the culture of bacteria that's in it. So now it's basically just white water with the protein content and all of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it's dead. But the problem is people aren't, a lot of people, not everybody, some people are way more tolerant than others. Some people are quote-unquote lactose intolerant, where the idea is that their gut does not process the sugar of the milk, the lactose in the milk, very well. So it gives them bloating and it gives them gas and it gives them farts and all that kind of stuff, just discomfort, indigestion, all that. So they avoid it and they go to the freaking nut milk, right? Or they just avoid it altogether. And so the idea of raw milk is that it is a living thing. It's a culture of bacteria. So it comes out the cow and gets refrigerated. That's it, right? Filtered. I think they do like a mesh filter or something just in case or whatever, but it's not like on the tiny level, microscopic level filtered. It just kind of goes through to clean it. But yeah, you get the milk, and then what it has in it is lots of good bacteria that's good for your gut, and it also has the lactase, like enzymes or whatever, which are purposely there to break down the sugar lactose.
It's almost like God designed the milk to have the thing you need, and then also the thing that you need to process the other thing that you need.
It's almost like God designed cows to be the most amazing freaking animal on the planet, or really ruminants altogether. They take massive quantities of something that we can't eat, and they turn it into protein. They turn it into lots of things that we can eat. They turn it into meat and milk, mainly, right? And gelatin and all of the other stuff, fat and good stuff that is made for us to be like absolutely optimally fueled and like live the most vital, virile life there is, right? Anyway, so back to the milk. It comes jam-packed with all the stuff that you need. It's already actively breaking down the stuff that your body has a hard time processing. So you drink the raw milk, and many such cases of, I guess you say many such cases after.
Let me give Justin's take right quick.
Hold on, let me finish. So you get the milk, and a lot of people, me included, who used to have an issue with like drinking the milk. I tried to get the organic. I spent extra for the freaking whatever with the cow on it. Oh man, organic milk, and then you drink it and you're like, oh, it's so much creamier and it tastes so much more flavorful and whatever, but you still get the stomach issues. And then whatever, so you get raw milk, and all of that stuff is completely gonzo, right?
Gonzo.
Many such cases.
There at the end. Here's Justin's angle on it. It's Justin's take. Take it away, Just. In God's plan, you have a cow, and it gives you meat, and it gives you milk, and the meat's delicious, and the milk is yummy for the baby. Mm-hmm. But in the world of the devil, they're making you drink something called nut milk.
Yeah.
The devil's trying to get you not only to drink something that's gonna lower your T and make you grow little man boobs, but you're also drinking something. And the label out there for all the world to see is nut milk. They got all us little boys who are just trying to live our lives and just trying to...
What are you trying to say?
I'm not going to say what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to say it, Drink milk. Drink God's cow's milk.
And somehow it's like this ultimate perversion that cows are unhealthy for the environment. You know what I mean?
Right. And then
Current
also,
event, this whole Green New Deal that just came out.
yeah, like
that-
7 years ago. So, yeah. Oh, if you're afraid,
Cow farts. Check, please.
check please, mommy. Cow's milk has been around for thousands of years, since the beginning. And now they're telling you cow's milk is not safe.
Yeah. Do you want the history
Need
of
I
that?
say more? Do I? Not really, but I mean, I like to see you. Just kidding. What do you got?
It's the
What's the
same. It's
history?
the gateway drug,
It's the
basically.
Rothschilds.
It's the Rothschilds. No, but this is what I say about raw milk. This is the thing. This is why people get so freaking vocal about it, is because it really is the gateway to everything else. You could be soy on everything else, and then the second that you like the easiest entry point into this world of like doing things alternatively because it's healthier for you, it's the true way. The easiest entry point is the milk, because it's easy and simple to understand. It's verifiable right on the spot. You can have somebody drink it, and it's easily tested, and it's verifiable historically. Like, it's easy to just go back and look and be like, oh, this is what happened, right? So those three things make it so that the most normie of normie person it's very difficult for them to hold on and maintain their willful ignorance of like truth, right?
Yeah.
So milk, always been good. Everybody's been drinking it for freaking ever. All the world, all of human history. Then, and again, the early 1900s, it's like something sick. It's like some weird thing happened in the early 1900s to make the whole world go wonk, right? Backwards and goofy. We'll talk about that sometime, probably. But all of this urbanization, people crowding into the cities and all this kind of stuff because of industrialism and I guess job opportunities or something. So they have these big giant dairy farms in the middle of the city where the cows are treated like absolute garbage and they don't get good food. People were still throwing their waste out of the windows so that their poo-poo and pee-pee went in the streets and into the water system, and they had zero sanitation, right? So the cows were sick. The milk came out yellow or red or freaking nasty brown and slimy, so they had to kind of like clean it up and filter it up and add like chalk to it to make it more white rather than like clear, and they did all this nasty stuff, and people were very obviously getting sick because of all of that, right? So then they trace it back, and they're like, wait a second, it's the milk. It's the milk that's making everyone sick. What do we do about this? Well, we could treat our animals like creatures of God, or we could just keep doing the nasty stuff that we're doing, and we'll just put it in a big vat and mix it all together and heat it so that all the bad germs go bye-byes, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did to save
Doing
money.
another unnatural thing to correct the
the sickness that
first
they were
unnatural
causing of
thing.
their own thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then they start selling it, and then all the sickness starts going away, right? But different things start happening, whatever. But
Longer-term
here's the thing. They
sickness.
get laws on the books to make it mandatory to pasteurize milk because milk is the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
And this very well could have just been a coincidence or whatever, and it's old laws and nobody knew better back then or whatever. But there's no reason in 2024 that the freaking whoever's making the laws and keeping them on the books, like they can't. There's a purposeful reason. You know what I mean? It's not like they don't know. Most normal people just don't know. But like there's a very real reason why it's illegal, and it's because
Yeah.
it's good for you and corrects people's guts and makes them like healthy and makes their skin better and makes all like everything about it is good.
Why can't the government, whoever they are, that are always tinkering with our stuff, why do they have to be in our business? Why do they have to be so nosy?
I don't
Why
know.
do they have to be nosing around in our business?
I don't know.
The powers that be
It's cringe.
up there, whoever they are.
If only they were like worried about being cringe, because
If only they were worried about
stop.
Yeah. But instead, yeah, what more can I say about that? It is truly baffling.
It's curse world problems.
It's curse world problems. So, yeah, I think we did a little bit of a treatment on food being cursed, because it is. Maybe we pick this up next time with like other things we consume. Media,
That could work.
music, drama.
Drama.
Alrighty.